All right, well, it looks like we won another one. The rules blocking funds to abortion clinics have been tossed in Florida. This is August of 2016. For those of you who may be watching this sometime in the future, I'm sure there'll be nobody watching it sometime in the past. In any case, this is two in a row, and speaking of two, I'd like to introduce my co-person for this evening. This is the lovely Ms. Tracy Thomas, a fellow atheist and member of Atheists of Florida. Thank you for joining us this evening, Tracy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this article regarding the funds to abortion clinics being tossed?
Yeah, so a federal court recently, as you said, here we are in August, a federal court struck down, let me get my glasses out here so I can tell you exactly. So Governor Rick Scott signed an abortion law earlier this spring, which then was blocked by the federal court. And the whole point was they were trying to prevent Planned Parenthood from receiving funds for treating things like sexually transmitted diseases and also things like cancer screenings, wellness screenings at abortion clinics, simply because they also did abortions. So the court decided that they couldn't prevent those funds from going to this Planned Parenthood because going to have an abortion is actually a right protected by law. And it was obviously a ploy to try to, again, make abortions unavailable to women by cutting off all funding as much as they can to Planned Parenthood. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, and it's counterproductive to what they say they are hoping to accomplish. The idea is to make the healthcare system safer for women. At least that's what they say. But that's not the idea. The idea is to get rid of Roe v. Wade. They've been, they being the religious right and the anti-abortion movement per se, or in general, have been working night and day for decades to get Roe v. Wade overturned. They haven't had any success and probably are not going to have any success in doing that. But what they have done is been able to introduce so many laws, literally by the hundreds, requiring all of these silly, unnecessary, even fatuous requirements in order for a woman to get an abortion. Now, for women of means, this is not a problem, and it never was a problem when abortions were legal or whether they weren't. They went someplace where they were legal, or they had some procedure like a D&C, which was legal, which accomplished the same result. But if you don't have that kind of friends or money or influence, and you have to drive 200, 300, 400 miles, spend the night, pay for these ultrasounds, listen to this heartbeat, get this bogus information. As I say, they've literally, I saw a number at one point this year, there were something over 200 different proposals limiting various aspects or adding requirements to the abortion procedures that had been introduced so far in the United States at the state levels. So, as I say, that is their strategy. It's a war of attrition, and over the past few weeks, the war of attrition has been going downhill for the we'll tell you what to do with your reproductive organs crowd.
They've been winning for a while.
They've been winning really hand over fist for a long time. Yes, they have.
And finally, the Supreme Court stepped in, I don't know, it was a month or two ago, and finally told Texas that the laws that they had created were way too onerous, such as requiring doctors to have privileges at hospitals, requiring hallways to be so wide. I can't imagine what the purpose of that was, because hospitals require it. I guess. And that was strictly because they were trying to improve the health of women.
And that brings us to my next point, which is an article that appeared back on August the 20th. It says Texas has the highest maternal mortality rate in the developed world. So we can see how effective these laws are at helping the women of Texas to survive the reproductive process. In fact, it's had the exact reverse effect, which brings up a certain irony, and that is that living, breathing, fully grown women, their lives are being sacrificed at the altar of blobs of cells that may or may not ever even reach viability, and if they did, it might not be sustainable because of a variety of various diseases or birth defects that they might have had. So it's okay to kill a 25, 30-year-old woman, but it's not okay to kill a 25 or 30-day-old fetus. The hypocrisy of that is writ rather plainly.
Well, yeah, they keep trying. They step in and say we have to create these laws to make women safer, when there's really nothing to make them safer from. Abortion is actually one of the safest medical procedures there is, and many, many times safer than actually giving birth.
Yeah.
The whole thing is absurd. You know, people tend to forget. You know, I'm of the baby boomer generation, and I know people of my generation and previous generations, we remember things like abortion boards in hospitals that existed before Roe v. Wade. So many women, I mean, just because you make it illegal doesn't mean women aren't going to get abortions, but they're going to tend to get illegal abortions and botched abortions, and it just fills up the hospitals with these women, and they die from it. And people just forget it.
Florence Crittenden. Do you remember the Florence Crittenden homes?
No.
I think they still exist, but I'd have to do a little investigation to see how many there are compared to how many there used to be. But that was, I don't know, like a franchise, where if you got pregnant and you know, you went out of town for a few months, to visit your aunt out in Idaho, that's you were actually on your way to the Florence Crittenden home, so you could have the child, give it up for abortion.
Adoption.
Adoption, yes, pardon me.
Yes.
Thank you. Give it up for adoption and save yours and your family's reputation.
Honor, yes, yeah. That's right. Well, you know, the crazy thing too is, you know, they're working so hard against abortion, okay, but now, in the last 10 years or so, they're also starting to work so much against birth control, which would seem to be directly at odds.
Yeah, right.
You know, I really don't understand this. You know, the Catholic Church has been against both abortion and birth control for many, many years, but the Protestant religion, to my knowledge, really didn't have much to say about birth control until recently.
No, I don't think they were nearly as vocally opposed to it as the Catholics.
And if you're really, truly that concerned about women and that concerned about not having abortion, then why in the world would you also start railing against birth control? It's just beyond me.
Again, you know, we've discussed these topics in the past, so it becomes a bit repetitive, but I don't call them the right to lifers, I call them the right to birthers, because once you're born, you are on your own. They have done away with aid to families with dependent children. They've changed that to aid to families with defendant children. They have cut back on the amount and the length of time that you can collect any sort of assistance or food assistance or any assistance, particularly for children. And as I like to say, the idea is that you have a right to be born and you have a right to live long enough to be executed.
That's about right.
Which is true, because the evangelicals in particular are among the most, as a percentage, are among the most avidly pro-death penalty faction in this country, the evangelicals, excuse me.
Evangelicals. Yeah. You know what's crazy too with the Zika virus becoming more prevalent here in Florida. You know, you would think that this would be a no-brainer. That if a woman were to be diagnosed with the Zika virus and feel very uncomfortable about carrying a child to term because of the possible birth defects, there are still people in this state on the right, on the side of the church, that are trying to prevent women from getting abortion in this case.
Marco Rubio, being probably one of the best known,
Yes.
felt that regardless of your religious ideas or your circumstances, you should carry the child to term and support it for the rest of its unnatural life. I would agree with that only insofar as if you wanted to, you could just take the child over and give it to Marco Rubio, and he would be responsible for its care and feeding for the rest of its natural life without the assistance of any public assistance to help offset the cost of doing that. And if he's willing to take care of any and all of the Zika-affected infants, I'm in favor of allowing women to carry them to term if they so desire. Unless, of course, they want to have an abortion and save us all the trouble and expense of bringing what figures to be a liability into the
most
world.
Definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Marco Rubio is prepared to endure any hardship that befalls someone else.
Someone else.
Yeah,
That's right.
He has no problem.
Especially women. For some reason.
Especially
I don't know
women.
what it is.
He has
I don't
no
know what it is.
problem with that. Shall we talk about Atheists of Florida for just a
Certainly.
second? You are watching the Atheist Forum. I may have mentioned that earlier. It's brought to you by Atheists of Florida. We're a nonprofit group in Tampa and Florida in general. We welcome your membership. Membership in Atheists of Florida starts with a $5. I know it's not a trick. It's a trap. But it starts with a $5 donation to become a member. We want you to pay. You know, we're in this for the money. So I think there may be a graphic up on the screen with our website and or email. Reach into your pocket, pull out your credit card, send us a check, go to your PayPal account, send us as much gold bullion, polo ponies, automobiles in good shape, as long as they're paid for. Anything you care to donate that has easy resale value, we'd be happy to have it. Okay? So, as I said, we want you to pay. $5 is not much to ask, but if you want to give more, there's absolutely no limit to how much you can give to Atheists of Florida, and think of the gratification that that will bring you. Some of the benefits of being a member is that you could vote for our board of directors or possibly even serve on our board of directors. Check out books from our extensive library, as well as the Matt Cooper Memorial Library. CFI has that, I think, do they not? Is it CFI? You get a newsletter, either digitally or in paper form, mailed directly to your home address.
We still do that, with paper.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, and it's delivered by a registered representative of the federal government. Discounts on books and merchandise, the benefits of associating with wonderful people like Tracy on my right, and, well, wonderful people. So, please send us anything and everything you possibly can that has some value that is not toxic.
Join us.
We'd be
One of
happy
our
to have
missions is to work toward the separation of church and state, to try to keep that going, and we would love to have you. You know, there's a whole lot more people in this country that choose not to be part of a traditional religion these days. I hear numbers anywhere from 16% to 30%, depending on which generation you're in these days. And you know, we're not a very powerful group because we don't organize too much. If we could organize better, if we could get people to join organizations like Atheists of Florida, where we do work against church and theocracy, we would be so powerful. We really would.
Well, we are, by demographic, I think, the largest sectarian, if you will, group in the country, right after the Baptists. And there are more atheists and nuns and non-believers than there are people in Texas. I think that is a lot of potential power. And until we show that we can get people elected or get them unelected, we won't really start to come into our own as a political power and wielding the type of influence that we should. If we can just reduce the amount of influence of the deluded, excuse me, the religious. Let me just put in a little public service announcement right here. You know, remember, please, try to self-delude in a responsible way. Okay, don't go out and blow people up or handle poisonous snakes or deny medical care to children. Try to practice self-delusion in moderation at all times. Really,
if you must.
If you must.
If you must.
Yes. So,
Yes.
so that's our little public service announcement from Atheists of Florida. In any case, our purpose, I'm going to sum it up for the evening. I think we've covered enough points for now. Our purpose basically and predominantly is not to destroy religion. It's not to attack religion. It's not to rid the world of religion. Religion serves a purpose for many people. I don't see that changing. And if it helps them to get through life, the human condition is never easy. I don't deny them. I wouldn't begrudge them that. On the other hand, I don't want to have to pay for it. I don't want it pounded into my children at school, at the football game, at the courthouse, at the city council, at the school board. I want it to remain apart from the government just as far as it can possibly get. That's the best thing for the government. It's the best thing for religion. It's the best thing for all of us, and that means it's the best thing for me. So, thank you again for watching the Atheist Forum. Please send us an email if you'd like to be on the show. We'd love to have you as a guest. We'd prefer it if you didn't agree with us and if you came down and corrected us on our misinformation and our misunderstandings. We would appreciate that very much. I'm always willing to change my mind when presented with better evidence. But remember, if the story seems too implausible to be true, don't believe it just because somebody wrote it down.
Make them prove it.
That's what they need to do.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tracy. All right.